Can't wait to spoil every Raw on Netflix for Kent live on the lab.
Please don't.
Everything.
I would like to congratulate you all for achieving the regular season. We have played all of the regular season games. The stage is set. The playoff teams have been announced. We know what day all these teams are playing in the wild card, except for, of course, your Kansas City Chiefs on the AFC side. But there's a few questions remaining for this team. Let's talk about them.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome into a live edition of the KC Laboratory, presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC, our tremendous partners in possible here at KC Sports Network. Happy Monday to you all. Happy snow day to some of you. I hope you are staying warm. I hope you are staying safe. We are getting push notifications from the state here on the Kansas side, left and right, saying don't drive. I'm not driving, that's for sure. It has been brutal out here. So hopefully you all are doing well. I am here with Matthew Lane. Matthew Lane, how are we today?
I'm doing pretty good. We also got snow yesterday, as we talked about on the postgame show. It's all melted. It's all gone. It went bye-bye already. Yeah, so that's a thing. But yeah, besides that, we're doing pretty good. We have we have a hard time limit on this show now, given what you're up to over there. And then we also we have a while now. We have a while now without any Chiefs football. We got some college football playoff coming up this week, but besides that, we're just kind of sitting back, hanging out, feet up, watching these other teams that just simply aren't as good as the Kansas City Chiefs try to play football this upcoming weekend. So that's nice.
We were obviously deprived of the opportunity to kick our feet up and watch playoff football in the wild card round last year without any stress because the Chiefs were playing in that round. But it is so fun to have the one seed and just be chilling, be big chilling. My mom, got me this wearable blanket from Costco, and it's just like this giant cozy oversized sweatshirt thing. And I intend to be sitting up watching the wild card weekend in its entirety in that blanket. And I cannot wait. I'm very much looking forward to that and enjoying all that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It sounds like Mahomes is going to be watching the wild card weekend from the hospital because I think Brittany is going to be having their third child that week, according to Tracy Wolfson. So yeah, good luck to the Mahomes family with all that. There's really not a ton of big questions about this team. I think we have a pretty good pulse on what they are at this point, and you feel good about the direction this team is heading. There's obviously a couple questions that are still still out there and worth examining. One of them stems around DJ Humphries, the left tackle in Week 18 for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know we've had a chance to watch a little bit more DJ Humphries, from the all 22 view, from the end zone view. And Maddie, I just wanted to ask you, what were your thoughts on DJ Humphries' performance after kind of getting another look at it, off of the outside of the broadcast view?
Yeah, I guess the takes about TJ Humphries from everybody, I guess, is going to be depending on where you're approaching it from. I think is going to heavily influence what your opinion on it is, right? If you take everything for purely what it was at face value, you're probably going to be very low on DJ Humphries. You're going to want Joe Thuney to keep playing tackle because you did see DJ Humphries give up 2 sacks. I know PFF credited him with 6 pressures. I don't know what 6 of them are. I can get to 3, 4 if we squint really hard, but I don't know how they get up to 6. It all depends on what you want to look at with it. But my thoughts coming away from it were the same thing that I thought in the second half leading up towards his injury in his first game. He clearly is a tackle that knows how to play offensive tackle, and he plays the position of offensive tackle technically and athletically better than anybody has for the Chiefs this year, right?
Mhm.
Joe Thuney's been more effective, but you look at some of what he does, he kind of turns everything into a little bit of a dogfight because he tries to jump on all these rushers, and he's great at it, and he does a great job, and they've been getting by with it. But then you watch DJ Humphries, and not only does he get depth in his slide, not only does he get in the proper position, but he does a really good job framing his hands so that rushers can't always get around him. He does a good job altering his punches, using different sets. Like, he clearly knows how to play tackle better than the other guys that they've tried to play left tackle. And that includes Thuney, even if he hasn't been as good. So I still lean towards banking on the upside a little bit. I have more on DJ Humphries, but what are your thoughts after getting to go back and watch through it?
Yeah, we can get into the discussion about the offensive line as a whole and in general in a second. I just want to talk a little bit about what I saw from DJ Humphries. I actually thought he had a pretty good performance, all things considered. So I didn't think it was I know there was a couple rough moments and people will point to him, but I even in a couple of those moments, it didn't feel like it was entirely on him. Like, there's this one play where he does give up the corner a little bit, and Carson Wentz is throwing the football, just gets the football off and gets creamed. But I think people associate him getting creamed with what was happening on the right side of the ball. Like, if the front side of the pocket doesn't collapse on the throw that Carson Wentz makes, I'm not sure if Carson Wentz even goes down based on the contact that DJ Humphries gave up in that game, right? So I'm not even entirely sure that one of those pressures or whatever you want to call them was even on him. And it was the optics of that play that made it look bad, right? It felt like, as far as just truly getting out in a stance and getting out there and moving, I thought he looked a lot better and a lot more comfortable as a true offensive tackle, like you said. Like, he looks like a offensive tackle playing the offensive tackle position in this game. There was a couple moments where he struggled a little bit with power, and I think that's always been something that has been up and down for him in his career anyway. He's not been known to be the stoutest of tackles. He's been more of a guy that's relied on his movement skills historically. So it's not like, the reason that people have liked DJ Humphries in the past is his anchor. So there was a couple moments here or there, but for the most part, it felt like a guy that looked better, got better as from what we saw, early in the season, getting off the snap a lot better. Timing getting out of his stance better. So, more comfortability with the cadence and some of that stuff. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. And it was to a level that I think is capable of being your left tackle. We can get into that discussion in a second. Was there anything else on DJ Humphries that you wanted to bring up specifically, though?
Yeah, I mean, for someone sticking with the pass protection stuff, the biggest thing for me that I'm looking at with him is just like we talked about, getting out into space and taking a more traditional offensive tackle set. That's not what Joe Thuney's done. And even if we go back to Kingsley or Wanya Morris, they've kind of struggled with various types of sets when they've had to do certain things. When they've had to cover distance up the arc, that's where they've really struggled. And I think we can go look at the Nick Bonito sack, or even if you go back to that Chargers game, there was another sack, and it might have been against Mac, where he got beat up the corner. So you might think that DJ Humphries is kind of losing the same way. But when you go back and watch those aren't necessarily an inability to have range up the arc or to get depth in the pocket. His issue is he's been a little bit late off the snap at times, dealing with a new center, a new quarterback. Now he's dealing with two or more new quarterbacks and another new center, and the snap count's going to be a little different. The cadences are going to be a little different. So I can forgive a guy who is inconsistently slow off the ball with his first couple reps of the team. But you watch him and he does not have an issue working his feet up the arc and then finding the proper place and time to shoot his hands and make contact. Nick Bonito is a very good pass rusher. He's been one of the most efficient pass rushers this year. He didn't go up against Humphries every play, but they had multiple matchups, and only anyone's going to talk about is the one sack, which was a bad sack. Don't get me wrong, but he was just a little late off the ball, given those other things we talked about there. And Bonito made a nice rush. I don't know. I think the upside's there. I've seen enough, I think, to bank on the ceiling of the offensive line unit with his play that will continue to get better. And something else I think that maybe went a little under the radar. I thought he was pretty good as a run blocker. The Chiefs run game against Denver obviously didn't do good. one of my bigger complaints about him in his first game with the Chargers, I think he was struggling to make some of the reach blocks. It felt like he was out of sync, like he hadn't played football in a year, trying to climb up to the second level. He was taking bad angles. He was not catching linebackers before they crossed his face. I thought he looked a lot more comfortable with the pathing that he was taking, getting up to the second level or down blocking on some D tackles or some tight D ends. So I thought his run blocking looked pretty good. It was an improvement from the first day. And I think he has continued to flash enough of a ceiling as a left tackle that you give him the job, you give him a chance with Tooney to see if the offensive line works before you pull the plug and go back to like the safer like floor, I guess, of Joe Tooney out there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment too when it comes to the run game. I think it brings it all together when we have that conversation here a little bit about the offensive line. One thing though, I just watching specifically this game for DJ Humphries, the Chiefs only played 34 offensive snaps, and Humphries I don't think played even all of those. I think there was a couple of plays that he missed. I think he missed the final possession, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he did. And I will say this too. I thought as the game went on, it was the opposite of the Chargers game. He kind of looked like he maybe, I don't want to say he was getting winded, but he looked like he was getting a little slower as the game went on. He played the whole thing, didn't get hurt, but he did look like he was losing a little bit of steam out of his snap. Now, they were also running a lot of pass plays. They at one point in time, they ran like 14 or 15 pass plays in a row. So like all those pass protectors are having to really get out of their stance and do it. And like, I'm not saying that's an excuse for being tired or anything like that, but this is his first action back from another injury that followed his first action back from an ACL, rehab. So yeah, he might have gotten a little winded towards the end of that game. And so that's like some of those pressures, because they all are the majority of the bad reps came in the second half, came later towards his stint in the game. I do wonder if there was a little bit of not rust or not fatigue necessarily, but just a guy that hadn't been out there yet and doing all this. And it was starting to catch up to him in the moment.
Well, I mean, Denver is the toughest place to play if you're trying to, from a conditioning perspective, like that's the biggest challenge I would say from a conditioning perspective is playing out there in Denver. And so that was one thing you saw him, he looked a little bit winded at the end of the game. I thought it was more than 30 snaps that he got winded in, honestly. But that was one thing you take into consideration when you're looking at it is like, okay, like, that it's good that he's actually getting conditioning for in week 18 out there. I guess I would say I actually wish it was more snaps, if I'm being honest with you, but the offense was just that bad for the entirety of the game. Okay. So yeah, there's kind of the DJ Humphries perspective from us, but now it's like the big overarching question. I think it's the biggest question that sits for the Kansas City Chiefs as they are entering the playoffs is, what do you do on the offensive line? We've had a chance to assess some things here. We've gotten a sample size of DJ Humphries, and we've seen Joe Tooney at left tackle. We've also seen Mike Caliendo at left guard, and I think that's one of the most important factors when you're having this conversation. It's not just Tooney, it's also who Tooney is being replaced by at the left guard position. And that's, I think, one of the biggest pieces of all of this that is worth kind of examining. So, Maddie, I'll ask you straight up, like, do you think the Chiefs are better with a Tooney Caliendo pairing, or do you think that they are better with a DJ Humphries Joe Tooney pairing on the left side of their offensive line?
I think we just got to define better. I think it's safer. We know the floor of the Tooney Caliendo thing. We know what that's going to provide. It's going to be, you were going to get above functioning, so good pass protection for shorter passes. You were going to have a stable unit that's going to pick up their protections well. They're going to call it well. They're going to get some basic blitzes, and they've actually handled stunts pretty well when those two guys over there working together. So it's a safety net. But I do think if you get into a game where you need to really put up points to win, it becomes a little bit of a shootout, and you maybe can't paper cut your way down the field. Right. That's where I get a little concerned, because we haven't seen them with Tooney at tackle and Caliendo at left guard have to really get into a drop back passing game. The Chiefs have almost dropped like all of even the play action deep shot stuff that they were trying leading up to Tooney stepping in to at left tackle, because they were getting harder in that. They were going max protect. They were getting some deep drops where plays were taking a minute to develop. Those have almost gone out the window. Part of it's probably Mahomes' ankle injury. Like, we can't discount that. But at the same time, watch how Joe Tooney takes a lot of his sets. There's not a ton of depth there. And when he is really asked to run up the arc, he's kind of chasing, just trying to get in the way, which, again, good at it. He's doing a great job. So it feels like they're leaving a lot of meat on the bone for what they can call offensively in the passing game. And so for that reason, I would chase the ceiling, at least in the first round, when you're probably going to go up against a team that you have beaten relatively comfortably at one point in time this year. If you're chasing that team, if you're chase that ceiling in that particular game, if at halftime, if in the second half, sometime you need to go back to the floor, you can always go back to the veteran left tackle.
I've said this before with this conversation, and it's not discrediting what Joe Thuney has done, because I think he's done a tremendous job. I think he's an unbelievably talented offensive lineman. I think he's one of the best offensive linemen in the National Football League, and I think he's continued to prove how valuable he is. But there's definitely some things about process that give me a little concern about if he's able to sustain it during the course of the playoffs. And like you said, like, running up the arc, it's running at times for Thuney. Like, it is, and he's doing a great job, and he has a good feel for rush moves off the edge, which is really impressive. And like, he's got good instincts about what a rusher might be trying to do, and he knows when he can kind of sell out a little bit up the arc, right? And he has to, because of the arm length, the size, the athleticism, kind of those kind of concerns, right? You just worry a little bit about if that comes back to bite them over a larger sample size, as teams are just going after the weaknesses in a way that that they'll just hit it until you stop it. In the playoffs, right? You gotta leave it all out there. You gotta go leave it all out there and just see what you got. And so, like, to your point, like, that gets figured out, and quick game gets taken away, and Patrick Mahomes has to hold the ball a tick longer. What does that mean? What does that mean for the offensive line, especially considering you've got Mike Caliendo, who has not played at a playoff level, has not played at he hasn't played a lot of snaps in the National Football League either. So, like, that's, I think, the other piece of it is, like, now you are, you have a safe floor. You have a safe floor at tackle, but guard still has some concern there, and you can shore up guard and make tackle capable. Like, that's very tempting to me.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it in this conversation. I think gets lost. People have honed in so much on the left tackle spot because that has been the issue, like, for the past 2 seasons along the offensive line. And Jawan Taylor has his own warts on the right side, but generally speaking, and especially if you kind of like put it into a vacuum, he's fine. He's a good offensive tackle. He's got some other stuff that they work through, but like, nobody talks about the left guard in these scenarios. And it's not that Mike Killiando's bad. He's proven that he is a good, versatile backup offensive lineman that can step in and be a spot starter if somebody gets injured. But if you don't have to start him, I think it's kind of bore out that you don't want to, right? It's kind of coming across that you really don't want to have to play him out there, because if you watch him, like, when he goes up against good interior pass rushers, it's gotten a little hairy. He's given up, a fair amount of pressures. He's been getting pushed back into the pocket more frequently than Joe Thuney has. And this doesn't even get us going on the run game, in which I think you have seen a step back from both left guard and left tackle during this switch. And that's kind of shown in their Chiefs' inability to get anything going in the run game. Not only, we talk about it, are they more predictable with what they have to run, they're just not as good at those predictable things they have to do either. So there's a lot of stuff. I think there's a lot of meat on the bone for this offensive line to get better. If DJ Humphries can start and play better than he has, get back to closer to what he has been at times in Arizona. There's no guarantee of it, and you can always go back. But like, if you get back to the all-pro left guard play of Joe Thuney, and then you get that level of DJ Humphries on the outside, which I don't even want to say we've seen flashes of, but we have seen the path to him getting there. We've seen enough to say there's a chance. I think you have to go for that, because I do think left guard being a liability, plus your left tackle being a little limited with a Joe Thuney, I think that is enough to cause concern for running that all the way to the Super Bowl.
Well, and if I'm going to go look at something really quick on, I got to check something. I got to look up a stat here. So Donovan Smith his last game in the regular season for the Chiefs was December 3rd. And then he didn't play until the playoffs. And I know that's a little bit of a different scenario, but like, I think this time last year, some of the question marks were like, okay, so is Donovan Smith going to be the guy? How is he going to play if he is the guy? And I mean, he played capably, in that short sample size that we got, those couple games that we got in the playoffs, like, he played well. So I know I know it's from us on the inside, it might be a little bit of like a blind faith too, right? When it comes to the performance of what you're going to get out of DJ Humphries, but like DJ Humphries is chasing a ring. DJ Humphries is a professional that's played a ton of snaps in the NFL at the left tackle position. And he knows what's required. So like I just think there's there's a lot of there's a lot of reason, I think, to logically, I think to throw DJ Humphries out there at the left tackle position too. Like we don't know what you're going to get out of Mike Caliendo in the playoffs either, right? Like
No.
that is such a big step for him too, to go from kind of playing a few games here at the end of the regular season to then having to step in. And hey, look, we're talking about worrying about some of the flaws of Joe Thuney potentially. If they can exploit those, like just as easily can exploit, actually maybe even easier to exploit some of the inconsistencies that you're getting out of Mike Caliendo at this point. So like, I don't know, there's a lot to consider there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think that's even like questionable at this point in time. If Mike Caliendo is playing left guard, he is going to be like the Waldo of the offensive line. That's who teams are going to go at, whether it's their best pass rusher, whether it's their stunts and games. They are going to challenge the guy that's a backup to go ahead and pick up all that. And so I don't know if that's better than necessarily doing the same thing at left tackle or not. I do know that when Joe Thuney plays left guard, he's an all-pro left guard. He's probably not an all-pro left tackle, but he's an all-pro left guard. The run game was working better when he was at guard, and I think that there is a chance. There is a chance that DJ Humphries can give you better left tackle play than anybody has to the Chiefs. I think he's already going to be able to give you better than what we've seen from Wanya Morris at left tackle or Kingsley at left tackle this year. So it just feels like if we're talking about putting directly the best five out there, you got to try the DJ Humphries, Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor lineup and see what shakes free at that point in time. I think you get better in the run game for sure. You probably get better in the deeper drop back game. And like the only thing that you maybe are a little worried about is DJ Humphries, like these other tackles this year, besides Thuney, has had these quick losses that have blown up plays quickly. And like, that's unfortunate because that's what Thuney hasn't had. That's what Thuney gives you at left tackle. He doesn't have the quick losses. I just wonder how much they can really get to with him out there. So we'll find out once they get to, I guess, the divisional round after whoever we figure out they're going to play in the wild card. But I think we're trending, if I were to guess, towards at least the Chiefs attempting a DJ Humphries at left tackle situation.
And I think you've said it, and you might even said it on the show, like it's easier for the Chiefs to go from Humphries and then make the switch and put Thuney out there than it is for the inverse. So I think you prepare with you. I think preparation wise, you're 100% right. You prepare as though you're going to start Humphries, have a little bit more potentially open in the playbook, and then you have the fallback plan if you've got to go to Thuney. Like I think you have like that's the calls. So
I think that's and I think that's an easy adjustment to make mid-game. Like the flip side is like there's not probably going to be a game where Joe Thuney at left tackle you ever go into, oh my God, this guy's so bad, we need to move him to guard and put somebody else in, especially a lineup that you haven't really given. Like you can't probably go that route. So if you were going to say, and I don't think that you do it to just save it, but if you start with DJ Humphries, I don't think the Chiefs face any issue if DJ Humphries at left tackle is just getting beat so bad in the first half of the divisional round or the championship round or the Super Bowl that you can't make the switch back to Joe Thuney. Like I think that will always be on the table as long as he is like, that's where you start with it. That's always going to be available for them.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we will be talking about the cornerback situation. And we're going to talk a little bit of NFL draft right after
let's
this.
go.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
All right, it's that time of year. It is playoff season, and during the playoffs, we try to have a good time out at Holiday Distillery, and we are doing that again this year. We are going to be having an event out for the divisional round. I know we don't know the exact date yet. We are going to be out at Holiday Distillery, though, having a nice party as we've done, I think, several times during this incredible Chiefs run. So there's going to be a great party, great food, great drinks, and it'll be either the 18th or the 19th, depending on when the Chiefs will be playing in the divisional round. So you want to come, sign up. Link is in the description of this show. RSVP in advance. Bring your friends. If you guys want to have have a good time with some friends, this is the perfect time to do it. You go out to Holiday Distillery. You go out to their beautiful event space, which is just gorgeous. It's rolling hills. It's beautiful out there. And enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Have some cocktails. has some food, have a great time. You're not going to want to miss this. And yeah, like sign up your friends and have them all come through as well. I got some buddies that normally go out there and do that whenever we have this, and it's always fun to see them out there. So yeah, sign up link is in the description of the show. Bring your friends. It'll be a good time. Limited availability, so go ahead and get that taken care of as soon as you can. Okay,
I'm going to recklessly speculate. I think the Chiefs are going to play the Saturday afternoon game in the divisional round of the playoffs because a few reasons. Their most likely matchup is the Texans or the Chargers, the winner of that game, unless there's another big upset, and they both play the early Saturday game the week before. And I'm trying to scroll back into the Discord because somebody had looked it up, but in the Discord, I believe it is Third and Mahomes in the Discord that the last 3 years the AFC 1 seed has played on the Saturday afternoon. So not that guarantees anything, but it seems.
Think about like rest edge too, right? Like every single AFC game is all 3 AFC games for the wild card are the first 3 games of the playoffs. So all 3 AFC games, the 2 Saturday games, and then the 1 Sunday game are all AFC teams. So it makes I mean, I know it's small. I know it's slight rest edge, but it just wouldn't make a ton of sense.
Right. Well, a lot of plays into it, right? I mean, like apparently the trend is the AFC gets a lot of the AFC 1 seed has been getting a lot of the early Saturday afternoon games. You look at the most likely opponents are also playing the Saturday, that early Saturday game. And then let's be real. The 1 seed versus the lowest seed remaining is probably going to be the worst matchup, quote unquote, available. They usually put that on Saturday afternoon. The most common 1 seed of late has been the Chiefs. That's probably the team that you think are going to be like the least competitive game, right? It makes a lot of sense for why it gets there. So I know we don't know for certain, but I feel comfortable saying they will probably play Saturday afternoon in the divisional round, just for people planning on, when that party might be.
Yikes.
When they're signing up.
Just reckless speculation for those planning.
There's some logic behind it. We got here for a reason.
If you're planning, here is some reckless speculation for you.
With some information to back it up. There's some reasoning behind it. I've never steered anybody wrong.
You should write an article in the KCS and Substack about that. Maybe, honestly, you could probably put sources on Twitter. Chiefs are likely to play on Saturday.
Afternoon.
You could do that. Cornerback position.
Please credit.
That might be playing in 2 Saturdays. Is there anything that you can take away from that at all? Can you take away anything from that game at the cornerback position that we saw week 18?
There's a lot I can take away. The Chiefs cannot put Najee Johnson and Shamari Conner on the field at the same time. One of them's enough. Can't do both. The combo doesn't work. That's 2 guys that have the biggest targets on their back for opposing teams. And we've kind of gotten to the point with Najee Johnson in particular that it doesn't even matter if there's good coverage. He's just kind of got to that Marcus Cooper territory where, hey, we need to make a play. We're just going to throw it 13 and see what happens and just kind of see what it is. And like, it stinks that a guy that has potential, that hasn't got a ton of experience in the NFL, has been thrust into such a difficult spot for the Chiefs and has had he's had some flash plays this year. It's not been all bad. It just seems like we're kind of trending towards the point to where no matter how well he plays on a particular down matters, because he's still going to be tested. And at this point, his confidence has to be at least, wavering a little bit because he's given up a lot of plays. And then you factor in the plays where he probably, you would say, doesn't play it very well. And that is an issue. So like Najee Johnson, I feel like is clearly settled in behind Joshua Williams who should probably play on the outside across from Trent McDuffie. And then like you flip it over to Shamari Conner's first came back. He also gets injured again in this game. We'll see how it goes, but he also seemed like it looked like he picked up right where he left off before the injury in terms of anytime a team wants to throw an out route to a slot wide receiver, he has no real chance to get there. Right. And like that was the issue the Chiefs faced in the middle of the season. So tough look.
Yeah. Someone asking here in the chat, what exactly does Najee Johnson do well? I think the Chiefs have, what'd you say?
Run fast.
Well, I think that there's some high level moments in the run game, and like I think he's a quick diagnoser of the run game. And the Chiefs place a premium on run defense, and so like I think they like some of the things that he's done in the run game, even though he has not always been as consistent making the tackle when he gets there. But they like what he sees when he's on the field in the run game, and they like some of the decisiveness that he has in the run game when he gets in there. So I think that's probably one of the things that the Chiefs probably appreciate about Najee. Yeah, he played 85% of the snaps in this game against the Denver Broncos at 63 snaps. Led all of the cornerbacks in snaps played in this game. I agree with you that Joshua Williams is a clear step ahead of him on the pecking order. Joshua Williams played 69% of this meaningless football game still. And so like that's a lot, and all this like that's a lot of snaps for someone to be playing that I'm not saying the playoffs hinge on him, but you might really need to be your cornerback 2 on this football team. I don't know why. I just don't know why. Like maybe they feel better about Jalen Watson coming back. Like I don't know. It just seems like a lot of snaps, or the and this is probably a likely scenario. They just really felt he needed more snaps. They just really felt like he needed to get more snaps before this game. It just feels like as thin as this position is, like it's just a lot of snaps to be playing your cornerback too.
Well, I mean, they have other guys though, right? Like Justin Reed's not playing, so you limit your safety room. Shamari Connor does get banged up. I believe. I mean, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't at the end of the game, right? It was like in the middle of the game, so that could also play a part. So now Roland Wallace has to play almost all the slot reps. You can't even flex him out. They did get Keith Taylor in some later, but like it's they kind of ran out of bodies, and the guys they called up from the practice squad, they had to call up a linebacker and a quarterback. So I just wonder if that just came down to math and who could and who couldn't play. Williams could probably use the reps, and hey, he played well, right? Like he got one target, didn't give up the catch. He played generally pretty well in this game. Joshua Williams has the physical talent. That's never been the question. It's just, can he be on the same page as other guys? And when he is in zone, can he zone it off correctly? Can he do what is actually being asked of him? Or is he going to, get a little antsy and drive on something that he shouldn't? Is he going to get a little bit lost on somebody creeping in behind him? Well, you live and learn by that, but I think it's kind of become clear that Najee Johnson is not the answer. Maybe Jalen Watson can come back at some point in time, and he's the answer. I just think, and more so than even just Najee Johnson or Shamari Connor, I think it's putting both out there together where you really run into a bit of an issue. Like, and this game against Denver, I know it was a meaningless game with a lot of backups. Combined, they were targeted 10 times. They gave up 10 catches for nearly 150 yards. And I think 2 touchdowns or a touchdown. Like they were getting picked on left and right. And I wouldn't say that's abnormal for either one of them when they've been on the football field for the Chiefs lately. So it's just that combination of both of those players, I think, is going to be a little bit difficult for the Chiefs to overcome if you can limit it to just one of those guys at a time, whether that's Williams and McDuffie outside with Roland Wallace in the slot, or you go with a Williams and Najee outside, but Trent in the slot. Like, more or less, I think it kind of comes down to like, how do you manage what's Jamari here? I'll ask you, what's Jamari Connor's role for this team? Where do you see him fitting in with this team? Who's coming off the field for Shamari Connor to play based on what we've seen? I think that's a little bit more difficult or like intriguing of a question. Najee Johnson, simple. He's behind Trey McDuffie. He's behind Joshua Williams. And if you're going to talk about the slot, he's behind Christian Roland Wallace, like, right, for specifically slot reps. That seems pretty straightforward. What's Shamari Connor's role?
Man, and I'm looking up something really quick here. Like,
yeah, sure.
I feel like the Chiefs, if you're asking what I think his role should be, like, I think Christian Roland Wallace should be playing over him. Maybe you play Shamari Connor a little bit more in early downs. If you're in the nickel, that's fine. But if you're on passing downs, I think I'd hand the reins over to Christian Roland Wallace. I'm trying to look at his game logs here real quick.
Right. And how often, like, Trent's still going to play in the slot too. That's when he's at the best. And like, he doesn't have to be full-time slot, but you're getting Trent McDuffie in the slot 10 to 15 times in a game too. So like, what's really left? Right. I just been like, yeah, where do you use Shamari Connor? I
think it's, maybe some early down work, right? Like maybe you do a little bit of that, and like teams will probably still just find a way to pick on him then.
Safety better than Cook or Hicks?
Are you making that switch? Are you finding out on the fly?
Right, no, I don't think he does. I mean, I don't even think he does, but like, does he? Like, and so I mean, like, it seems like the Chiefs have almost kind of like, and not in a good or bad way, it just feels like they've almost like played themselves or backed themselves into the spot where I don't know if Shamari Connor, who seemed like going into this year like he was in a spot to really, really step up, didn't quite get there. And the other players they have kind of like have put it to a spot where they were almost a better defense without him out there because they didn't really have to force him in there. If you need a better run defender, on early downs, just give me Hicks and Cook out there. If you need better coverage players, it's either Trent or it's Roland Wallace instead of him. It's just, I don't know where the spot for him is.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and I think it's kind of worth examining. I was trying to look at some of his, like he's got playoff experience, and I was trying to figure out how many snaps he played in the playoffs. So I was kind of trying to find, but
a decent amount. He played a good game against the Bills, I believe.
Last
year.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it was the Bills. And yeah, I just wonder. You wonder. If the Chiefs lean on that experience too over a Christian Roland Wallace too. Like from a Chiefs perspective, I could see the path to Shamari Connor playing more than we would want him to. So
right.
That's
the trade-off is he plays early downs and then Trent goes out there and plays in the slot on passing downs, and then you do the Joshua Williams, Najee stuff on the outside. Like, I don't think that I love Najee Johnson out there, but I like getting Trent McDuffie to shadow a number one wide receiver or getting him in the slot. So like, I will live with that as long as it doesn't put those two out there together. It's just, I'm just having a little bit harder time defining where you really want to smash Shamari Connor reps into this team.
Right now, I don't know. I really don't know. It is a big question. I think the funny thing is, with all this wealth of playoff experience that we all have as Chiefs fans and all that stuff, it does feel like the team, we have all these conversations about some of the things that ail this team, and then they have a plan for how to mitigate it, right? And so, like, I'm curious, rarely is it like, well, especially as the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl last couple of years, it's like the Achilles heels of these teams has not come to be problematic to them in the playoff stretch, right? So we'll see if any of these concerns, the slot defense, defense against in the passing game against slot defenders, or against slot receivers, like how much that really winds up mattering in the playoffs, right? We'll be curious to see if any of these things even matter. But like these are things that could keep them from winning the Super Bowl. If I'm gonna give anybody that wants to throw, we're gonna talk a little draft here, because this is our last week to talk a little draft. Draft is always on the mind of all of us here at KCSN, and we're going to be at the East West Shrine Bowl in like 2.5 weeks. And we get to hang out with Craig, which is pretty awesome. If you have any draft questions, though, is anything on your mind, throw them in the chat. We might answer a few draft questions before we close this show out. But I wanted to give a little bit of draft talk time, just because, like, hey, look, we've spent a lot of time on corner and we spent a lot of time on tackle, and those are the two biggest things heading into this game. So, or into this next couple weeks. So, throw a question or two. Throw a question or two out there if you'd like. I got one from Anonymous Mango here, actually. What positions are you taking in the first 3 rounds? It's such a loaded question. Because there's a lot of factors.
Sure.
I'll create a scenario for you, and then you figure it out. The Chiefs don't extend Trey. They do extend Nick Bolton, and they sign DJ Humphries to a 1-year deal at the left tackle position. Mm-hmm. What are the 3 positions you could see this team targeting?
I'm gonna, the cop out is just like, it depends on who's there, right? And like, so I don't want to stick to that, but what you just said to me, targeting, I'm going into the draft thing, and just because they lost Trey, I don't know if I'm targeting a guard in the first 3 rounds. If somebody falls and is there and it's a great value, I'm going for it, but I still don't know if guard is like, I'm circling as this is a priority for me, because if that's the case, then just pay the good one. Don't try to draft a good one. So I'm not targeting a guard. I'm probably in this scenario still targeting an offensive tackle. Again, the value is going to matter. I'm not going to force it, but I'm still going to target one. You have both your tackles are probably on their last year in Kansas City. After that, you wouldn't say that DJ Humphries is probably a guaranteed starter for the whole season or anything like that, depending on how much money you pay him. So targeting tackle, targeting some form of offensive weapon. And like, I'd probably even say pass catcher, whether that's tight end or wide receiver. I don't think it matters. Just targeting a pass catcher and then a pass rusher. Those would be my 3 targets based on that scenario. I'm getting pass rusher, pass catcher, and then probably a tackle.
I think you could leave. I think you're probably right. I think you could maybe even just like expand it, not just to like defensive end. Like it could be a defensive tackle. It could be a defensive lineman of some kind of value. Too.
Yeah, I just don't think it'd be a run guy. I think it would have to be I think it would just have to be a pass rush. I'm thinking more about how to get off to the passer. The Chiefs' run defense was really good this year with just very journeyman defensive tackles and defensive ends who are just kind of jags. So like and not in a bad way. Like obviously Karlaftis is good and stuff, but like Mike Dana, Malik Herring, Felix, like these guys played a lot of snaps for this team and the run defense was good. So I don't know if they need to spend an early pick on a run stopping defensive lineman. You need to get another guy that can rush the passer, especially in this scenario. We didn't talk about it, but like we don't know the outlook on Omenihu here. So like, yeah, pass rusher. I feel bad leaving corner off and it's definitely going to be in contention too. But with Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie both back, I feel like you can do enough at corner 3 to be okay when those 2 guys are healthy. So that's why I left that off.
This is just an interesting scenario. I'm going to see what you think about this because Ronson Trade just said Tyleik Williams, the Ohio State defensive tackle in the 1st round, and Tate Ratledge, the guard out of Georgia in the 2nd round. How would you feel if that was the Chiefs draft?
Like both players, I think that where you'd have them slotted right now is probably about where you could realistically expect to get them. I would obviously love either one of them a round later than that when I would feel really good about where they are slotted right there. Williams had a really good game. He's had a good playoffs here. He was really dominant versus Oregon. He showed off a lot more pass rush juice than I think he has during the majority of his career at Ohio State. I think he's been a little bit more of a run defender than he has been a pass rusher. So that would give me a little bit of a hesitation that it's a flash in the pan as a pass rusher. So a run defending first defensive tackle in round 1 is probably not my favorite choice. I do like Tate Ratledge quite a bit. I think when he came back from his ankle injury and got a little bit healthier, he was playing really good. So I'd be okay with it. I'd probably want to go with a little bit more dynamic player, consistently dynamic player than Williams in round 1 though.
What's your favorite value running back in this draft to supplement or supplant Isaiah Pacheco? I love this question. Maddie Lane does the write-ups on the running backs for the KCSN draft guide. So, Maddie, who you like?
So many guys. You should have let me have running backs because I like them all. Running backs are easy to like. You just got to do a couple things well. My new favorite guy right now is LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. I had a tweet about him. He kind of looks like a receiver and he can do some legitimate wide receiver routes, but I think he has really good run instincts. He has good vision for a guy that you're going to look at and like want to call him a 3rd down back because of how good he is as a receiver. But like he legitimately runs well as a running back. He doesn't bounce everything to space. He doesn't have bad vision or anything like that. So I really like LaQuint Allen, and I don't think you would have to, break your neck to try to draft him in the top 100 picks. If I'm drafting a running back, I'm not trying to supplement Isaiah Pacheco. I'm trying to supplant. I'm trying to get somebody better. I don't think they need more Pachecos. I don't think they need more Pacheco lights. Like they need somebody that can make something happen. I like Isaiah Pacheco, runs super hard. I understand, love having him on the team. I've said I think he's a running back 1B at best. He might just be straight up a running back 2 to me. He struggles to make things happen on his own. You need somebody that can. It's like LaQuint Allen is probably the guy right now that is like, if I had to just throw a dart and say like that guy's going to change a team without having to cost a ton of capital, he's the guy that I think can be super dynamic going forward.
Kyle, and I'll hit this. Kyle Coffey asking about Devin Neal, yes or no? Yeah, it's a yes. I don't know. I've kind of gone back and forth on if I think he's going to wind up being a top 100 pick. And the more I think about it, I'm not sure he's going to be, but I think
not in this class.
Probably somebody drafted in round 4 would be my estimations. He's going to be a round 4 pick, I think is where he goes. Whether he falls to the end of the 4th round, pick 132 for the Chiefs to be able to take him, I'm not sure. He's shown and there's a lot of people showing Devin Neal some love in the chat too. But I mean, I think he's an upgrade over Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's a guy that I think he's kind of close to the threshold of players that I think is an upgrade to Isaiah Pacheco in year 1. But he's shown a lot more as a pass protector. He's shown a little bit more long speed than I thought. A little more, not long speed, a little bit of long speed, but burst. I think burst has been better than I thought. A little bit better in open space. Really good vision. Very patient runner, which I don't know if that gets him in trouble at times too. Like he's a little too patient sometimes. But there's a lot to like about him. I think he's a very capable back, and I think he's a definite upgrade to that rotation and potential. There's an Isaiah Pacheco conversation to be had, right? I think he's left a lot on the table this year, and the Chiefs really need to find a way to improve that running back room.
I'm with you on Devin Neal. I very much like Devin Neal. I think we're kind of finding the floor of this guy's definitely better. And I don't say this in a bad way, but this is a guy that if you put him in an offense, he can make some things happen on his, not on his own, but if you get him a rush lane and then have to make him beat one guy, he can beat him. If you put him in a spot where he has to read it out and find a gap that's not, clear as day, he can find it. Whereas I think somebody like Pacheco, when those things don't exist, when the lane's very clear, when there's not somebody that he has to beat to make it work, he's good. And that's fine. And that provides a certain base level. But to get above that, Devin Neal's probably starting to get towards he's one of the last guys in this draft that I think you draft. And day one, he is above that level. He's day one. Can make stuff happen on his own. There's a couple guys below him that maybe have a chance, but he's probably the last guy that walks in to this team as running back one. And then I don't mean that as a bad way. I really like him. I think he's a fourth round pick. I have a pretty good grade on him right now. I'm a little concerned about his long speed and what the NFL is going to do with a guy his size with that speed. So you might be able to find him as a little bit of a bargain if you're not looking for a home run hitter with him, though.
And Neal's not a overly dynamic pass catcher either. No. I think he's got capable hands. He's got good hands for a back, I'd argue. Just as a route runner, there's not much there. He wasn't asked to do much at KU. Efficacy of route running for running backs lately, it doesn't even feel like it matters all that much. It's swings and stuff. There's just can he go out there and catch a swing? Yes. Yeah. You're not putting him out in the route in a real dynamic way. And the Chiefs haven't.
Does that change if you get competent tackle play or don't have Travis Kelce? We don't know, because Andy obviously has used guys that are much more dynamic route runners at running backs in his career. So it's definitely something that he will dial into when available. So we don't know how much that matters to him or
not. Kyle Coffey asking, is this a best player available or a needs type of pick in round one? Very good question.
Depends on what you do in free agency, but as always, I think round one, you got to go a little bit more best player available. In my opinion, that's not where you start to slam needs in, because, and this is, I call this the Clyde Edwards-Helaire conundrum for me. It's it kind of changed how I looked at, especially at round one picks. If you have to talk yourself into why that player is a decent value or why that player fits for a round one pick, he's probably not a round one pick. Now, are there always going to be round one picks available? No. So sometimes you can't follow a rule like that. But when you're sitting there looking at a guy and part of your rationale that you're leading with is, well, we need someone to play this position, or this is our biggest need, or if we can just do it X, Y, or Z way, this guy will work. That's probably a guy you shouldn't take in round one. You should probably get somebody that's just good.
When I look at, the Chiefs typically like to have their roster set, and what I mean by set is they like to have somebody that they feel comfortable rolling out day one with at every position. They kind of like to have both sides of the football kind of spoken for to varying levels of confidence, right? So it's not like you're just going to have no absolute, I think the Chiefs will have some kind of left tackle answer, be it DJ Humphries, or they'll gas Wanye up a little bit, or they'll gas Kingsley up a little bit, and they'll say, this is who we're going to roll with starting with this season. And they'll at least I think they'll let the board fall to them in round one. But I think that's what makes this so interesting is if Emeka Egbuka is available at wide receiver from Ohio State at the Chiefs pick, take him. If a cornerback that you like falls, if the Chiefs like Siobhan Revell, the cornerback out of Eastern Carolina, take him. If one of the, if Malachi Starks falls, the safety, take him.
Oh, please.
Yeah. I'm just using
solve the slot issue right there.
Right. It's just, I think it's a BPA. And I think the Chiefs always mostly want to go BPA. Sometimes I don't know, like the Felix draft, like there wasn't a great BPA. I don't think.
And that's where that's where I came back to the conclusion, like, okay, like you're not always in round one are going to be able to make a pick that you don't have to rationalize a little bit for round one. There will be times where that's going to happen. And very specifically in my mind, it was the Felix draft but then it also comes back like, and obviously one tight end has been the best, but if you just, and Brian Branch has been really good. So if you just took the best player in that draft, rather than worrying about position value or how a guy fit, you probably came away with Laporta or Brian Branch. You probably came away with a better player. Not that Felix won't be better, but you probably would have came away with a better player just getting the best guy. So round one, I feel like it's just, you can't have to rationalize the pick too much. Our guy Eisen did say this, Matt, we're taking a running back and linebacker in rounds 1, 2. Like, listen, Chiefs come. I'm like, I'm not going to say and say I love it, but you tell me the Chiefs came out of this draft. I said it before with Omarion Hampton and then like Jihad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama, in round 2 for some reason. Like they come out of there with that. Listen, I don't.
Let's do something a little bit more reasonable.
I don't think it's that unreasonable.
I don't think Jihad Campbell's there at 64 at all.
I don't think it's likely. I just don't think it's that unreasonable.
Omarion Hampton and Danny Stutzman at 32
That's
and 64.
less fun because he's not as athletic, but I'll live with it.
If Deontay Lawson, the Bama linebacker, hadn't declared, I would be like, that's the fit. Is like that's the guy.
But yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, like there's a pathway to where I don't hate that, is all I'm saying, right? There's just a pathway for where I don't hate that. So I've seen some people talk about Ginty. If Ashton Ginty's there and the Chiefs taking round 1, I feel fine with it. I have a few more questions about Ginty than I think like anybody else does. I don't know if 5'9", 210-pound wide or running backs that I don't think are fast are probable round 1 picks. And maybe this is Clyde colored glasses and he's clearly a better player than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Don't get me wrong. It's just that body type with what I expect him to kind of run and how his athleticism looked against Penn State. I have a few questions about that prototype in the NFL, but I mean, I would still take him in round 1 happily.
Maddie, do you want to do like a very quick mock draft? Like the quickest mock draft?
No. I think we should save that. What I want to do, because we have the semifinals for the college football playoff
right now.
We can do that after the show.
Okay.
But I wanted to go to the college football semifinals. We got 2 big games coming up this week before the playoffs start. And so I just want to talk about some of the guys that you can watch this week because you don't have any Chiefs players going for it.
Sure.
Sure. You seem so unexcited for this. We got
Notre Dame and Penn
State. Notre Dame and Penn State up first. Notre Dame doesn't have any offensive prospects worth talking about, which stinks because Penn State has a lot of good defenders. So, if you want to get real deep into it, you can watch Penn State's D-line, I think, versus Notre Dame's offensive line, which is generally pretty good. They're always pretty good. So, like, along Penn State's defensive line, Abdul Carter, great, no chance. Danny and Dennis Sutton, number 33 defensive end, very spagsy. Plays good, plays against the run very well. I don't think he's an overwhelming athlete, but a good run defender that has the Spags build. And then Zane Durant, number 28, their defensive tackle, I think has a little bit of juice to be like a, mid-round defensive tackle if he decides to come out. So I think those are some Penn State defenders to watch against a quality Notre Dame offensive line. You go to the other side. You want the other side? You want the
go. Sorry, I was looking something up. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Cooking. And you can always just check Maddie's tweets about the players to watch.
Sometimes I'll do that too. I just thought we could talk about it a little bit more here too, because we had the Chiefs game didn't matter. We had a little bit of time to kill. Penn State's offense starts with Tyler Warren. Notre Dame's kind of decent this time. Xavier Watts, safety for them, playmaker, very good football player. I think you're going to get a lot of Tyler Warren versus Xavier Watts matchups and coverage. That one might kind of dictate how this game goes a little bit. So I think that's a big one. And then I do love Nick Singleton, Penn State's running back. Jack Kaiser, linebacker for Notre Dame, played very good this last week against Georgia. He was kind of flying around for a guy that I don't know how athletic he is, but Penn State can run the ball better. Singleton, I think, is a better athlete than any running back Georgia had. So just seeing how, and Katron Allen, Penn State's other running back, just see how those guys run against a good Notre Dame defensive front led by Jack Kaiser, Tyler Warren versus Xavier Watts. You got any takes on any of these players before we move to the next game?
Big fan of Watts. I kind of put onto him during the Indiana game. Dude was flying around, made some really nice plays on the football. Good plays in the run fit. That was very impressive. Howard Cross, the defensive tackle for Notre Dame, also not too shabby as well. I know he's been dealing with some injuries this entire season. I think he got hurt even again against.
It might have been cramps. I heard it might have been cramps this last, but we don't know because I don't think he came back into the game versus Georgia. I think he did leave and then just kind of like.
Jack Kaiser, I think I actually watched for last year's draft guide. And then he wound up coming back to school. And I think you described him perfectly. So not a great athlete.
He's played good this year, though.
Smart football player. Yeah. I think that's about right. Notre Dame. So you talk about Notre Dame. You talked about Penn State. So we got another football game to talk about, though. The Texas-Ohio State game. There's a lot of good football players. Mecca Egbuka, the wide receiver for Ohio State, is one of those players that, like, I think of all the receivers that might be worth consideration for the Chiefs in the first round, like he's the last one. And he's probably the most realistic target as far as players that could be available. Both the running backs, Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson, if the Chiefs are actually going to invest in a running back before the top 100 picks, both of those guys probably go sometime in round 2. Would be my guess. I'm more partial to Travion Henderson based on what, like, that, especially that Oregon game we just saw. I watched Travion versus Quinshawn in that game, and I mean Travion Henderson was incredible in that game against Oregon. So both those backs, Donovan Jackson, the interior offensive lineman, currently playing left tackle for Ohio State right now, and did a pretty good job, honestly, in this last game.
He's done good since he's had to kick out there.
Yeah, he's had a good. He's played well out there. Another guy like a positional flex. So like there's yet another one. Will Howard, if you're looking for a backup quarterback.
No, absolutely not. Get out of here. Time to cut you off. It's enough Ohio State offensive players. So yeah, let's go Texas defense versus like some matchups to watch. Not just everybody to watch, right? Matchups. Egbuka, great wide receiver. Really like him. Still plays predominantly out of the slot. So Jahdae Barron, corner for Texas. He will play outside, but he also plays in the slot quite a bit. They might try to match him up on Jeremiah Smith, the freaky freshman wide receiver for Ohio State, or they might go the Michigan route and kind of double him a little bit more. And in that case, Barron might be in the slot a little bit more against Egbuka and playing a force against the run. I didn't think he had his best game versus Arizona State, and it was the run game. Like his run fits were pretty bad in the way he played it out of the slot, but he does have experience playing safety, nickel, and outside corner. So just what does Barron do against these Ohio State wide receivers, specifically if he is in the slot matched up against Egbuka, is a big one. Andrew Makuba, the safety, another safety for Texas, I really like. I think he's going to have a huge role limiting these explosive plays that Ohio State has been dialing up so far in the playoffs. They've been killing Tennessee, Oregon, and they've been hitting these deep posts. They've been hitting these like deep leak routes over and over again. So I think Makuba will be the guy to stop them for Texas secondary. Throw a dart and you're hitting an NFL player in Texas's front seven, right? But they're, again, going to have their work cut out for them against this Ohio State rushing attack. I am really intrigued if Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, the 2 D tackles, can control the space. Like Ohio State's down a lot of reserve offensive linemen. That interior's really moved around. They have lost their starting. They have a backup guard in because their guard's playing tackle. Can those 2 D tackles for Texas, who have been good, like really control this game and dominate on that side of the ball?
Let's talk about the Ohio State defense. How about that? Ohio State defense. Denzel Burke and Noah Igbinosun are both 2 cornerbacks, outside cornerbacks that probably are going to see themselves play on day 3. Igbinosun is one of the most grabby cornerbacks in this entire class, but he's extremely physical, and I think
he's got a shot for top 100.
I said 3 or day 2. I said day 2.
Okay, sorry. I think you said day 3. Maybe you meant day 2. I'm a little more questionable on Burke being day 2, just because I don't think he had a good year this year. He was a lot better last year than he had been. This year he came back, and I think he's been a little bit more up and down. Igbinosun, I can see it with him. If you get him to quit being so handsy, I can see it. He does have his hands a little bit full. I don't know if Isaiah Bond, a wide receiver for Texas, is going to be fully healthy. They could really use him in this game to be, but he hasn't been for a while. But boy, Matthew Golden, our guy for Texas, has really stepped up lately. He's been making a lot of plays versus Georgia. Arizona State doesn't have the most talent, but against Arizona State, like he's been really good for Texas down the stretch. So I like that matchup. Ohio State didn't have to face Evan Stewart against Oregon. Not that it would have mattered, but the last time they faced a good outside wide receiver, he kind of torched these guys, and they didn't
Stewart cooked them.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he didn't, but
Yeah.
he didn't play him again. They haven't
Right.
really played another good outside wide receiver since that first game against him. So just Golden versus those guys, I think, is a big one. Then obviously the trenches on both sides still.
Well, the trenches are insane. We talked about Tyleik Williams, 2 defensive ends for Ohio State, JT Tuamalo, and then Jack Sawyer's probably the cheesiest fit of the defensive ends. Like
Please,
Tuamalo's
no.
a little bit more sought out. Sawyer, yeah, he's not. I mean, he's a big, long run stopping Spags defensive end. He makes some timely plays rushing the passer. He makes some timely plays in the pass game. Tippin had an interception against Michigan. So he makes some of those kind of plays, but not overly dynamic as a pass rusher, not a quick win edge. He's a lunch bail
He's like
edge.
a 5-star recruit. Like, so he might be sneaky. He might be like sneaky testing athletic, which is like gonna, I think, throw some people off the scent of him not being a winning pass rusher like that. But yeah, he's a good player. It's just like, I've seen enough of that type. Texas offensive line, I guess, Kelvin Banks, it depends on if teams think he's a tackle or a guard. Maybe he ends up sliding a little bit, but I doubt it. The other tackle for Texas, Connor Williams, some people really like. I think he is a more raw, not as good version of Amarius Mims. And it's maybe, a little healthier, but he still has been injured lately. So we'll even see if he plays. I think the Chiefs should just avoid developmental offensive tackles like that. So like Texas, the offensive line is good. Jake Majors, their center, DJ Campbell, he's played guard before. DJ Campbell, another guard. Like they have interior guys that will go play in the NFL. So it'll be a tough matchup for an Ohio State front seven that's played very well. It's just, there's players all over in this game. This game's kind of hard to run down. Realistically of like, who would you, or like what players to watch, not watch. Cause you kind of just pick a spot and there's going to be guys there that matter.
That's a small little reprieve from all of the DJ Humphries discourse, talking a little bit draft. I was going to do it for this episode of the KC Laboratory. Thank
Derek
you all
Harmon, Wyoder.
so much for listening, watching, supporting. We love you. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.
Derek Harmon, Oregon, 3 Tech.
Good player.